The debate on competence-based curriculum in Kenya goes on. I have heard in some quarters that the competence-based curriculum was flawed from the beginning, that there may in fact be no such a thing as competence-based curriculum. Listen to some debaters or one debater with that point of view.
What I said is that from the beginning, it was a conceptually flawed idea. Competency is used for working people. It is when you're training workers to do a specific task. So it's a very short-term training, and it is training for a specific task. So the first thing I was saying is that why are we teaching it to our children? So from there, everything to me is whatever else we have seen in the system, all the problems start from there. The fact that the idea is flawed, because you see what happens once you don't do the work of conceptualizing what it is that you want, and you implement it anyway, and you refuse to answer our questions, then now all the problems we are seeing were inevitable. So I'm not surprised at all by what has happened. It was happening. I mean, I saw it from 2017, even before they implemented it, and they said we should not ask questions, we can't keep talking all the time, let's just implement. But then I asked, what are you implementing then? And they didn't answer. So we are where we are.
So how can you say that it was flawed, conceptually flawed, Dr. Njoka?
I don't think there was any research done, and I'll tell you based on the evidence I have. First of all, when I looked for the documents, where did this thing come from? First thing I did, I looked at the curriculum framework, which was released by KICD. It's very uninformative. And in fact, I kept asking them, if you check my appearances on the media and my Twitter handle, I asked them, where did you get this idea from? Because the citations, the books you have cited, because I'm an academic, that's what I look at. The books you have cited do not talk about CBC or competency. So where did you get this thing from? Who came up with it, so that we can ask them the questions we have about why competency? We never got those answers. So I started digging. The next thing I found was a document which was on the UNESCO website, where it said that competency was given to the Kenya government in 2017. They had no funding. No, I think 2016, they had no funding. So the British Council promised to fund it in 2017. So in fact, actually, the decision was announced beginning 2017, and Matiang'i is the one who launched the pilot after elections of 2017. So that's the second thing I found. Apart from that, there's very little on competency, except that now later on, after digging a lot more, I found this article by an education scholar in Turkey who said that nobody knows where this idea of competency, especially at primary school, came from. But his suggestion is that it came from the business corporations. And what they did was there were several interests in having a competency curriculum. One, of course, was technology. If you technologize the education system, it means the tech companies get business. So the idea of competency started with the tech companies. They funded journals even to publish in favor of competency, but it was never something that was being talked about within academic circles. So they sponsor these journals, and then they now start also putting pressure on global bodies like OECD, UNESCO. And in fact, in 2016, there was a letter from a number of academics from the US. They wrote an open letter complaining about the pressure that these corporations were putting on the education system in the US. And the system is very similar to what we are calling CBC here. So there's a whole field, in fact, that I discovered of what is called I think it's called Global Education Policy, about policy travel, about how policies are made in the US and then the corporations start, pushing global continental bodies to impose them. So they tried Europe. Europe, it didn't quite work because Europe's education is decentralized. So in every area, the teachers would say, no, this doesn't make sense. They tried the US with the Common Core. It's not doing very well. So Africa is on the last leg of this idea, but we are the ones who are implementing it with more fujo than all the other continents.
More vigor than everybody else.
Yeah. So I'm not convinced that KICD did the research, and that's why they couldn't answer our questions.
Now, that view made me do my own research, mainly desk research, and using basically the internet. These are some of my results. Does competency-based education exist? I went out to do little desk research, and at this source, I found across the country, that's the USA, there is a growing movement to transition away from seat time and move towards a flexible structure that allows students to progress in their learning after they have demonstrated mastery, which is oftentimes at their own pace. This movement, which extends well beyond issues of time and pace, is known as competency-based education. So it exists. And at that source, the competence-based education CBE approach allows students to advance based on their ability to master a skill or competency at their own pace, regardless of environment. This method is tailored to meet different learning abilities and can lead to more efficient student outcomes. Yes, CBE exists. And at that source, we have a network. I discovered a whole network of institutions, employers, and experts who believe competence-based learning can unlock opportunity for today's learner. Yes, again, at that source, you can see transforming education systems. The Aurora Institute is lifting up new ideas to shift mental models on public education. We are drawing from the latest developments in education systems, change nationally and globally transform the K-12 education in the United States. Latest. And at that source, the NEP 2020 calls for a shift from assessment system that is summative and primarily tests rote memorization skills to one that is more regular and formative, is more competence-based, promotes learning, development for our students. Yes, CBC, CBE, you want, CBA, competence-based approach, they exist. And indeed, I found a number of books, on competence-based education. Look, competence-based education, training, competence-based education, nursing, teaching in a competence-based elementary school, and all these are books on competence-based education. So surely, if it did not exist, if it's not real, if it's not factual, why write books about it? And I came over here. Look, in Africa, now, countries such as Zambia, Rwanda, Kenya, Tanzania, Nigeria, and South Africa, and among others, have adopted competence-based education. This was 2019, after Kenya also adopted it. And this is a whole article by a number of people, not one. No, Kabombwe and Mulenga, Muneja, Muraraneza, Mshali, and all that. So indeed, people are writing, scholars are writing on competence-based education. So probably my colleague had not seen this, and therefore it may not be said to be flawed. Yes, the Africanized competence-based curriculum, that's us. 21st century strikes. You know, we're being told that competence-based is being Africanized. You know, and we're told African education still changes due to the influence of technological advancement and globalization. Many African countries are struggling to be at the breast with the international standards in the knowledge economy progress. Adoption of competence-based curriculum, CBC, brings new trends on the leverage of African education with the rest of the world. CBC emphasis is on the attainment of competencies among the graduates. Well, maybe the only quarrel I may have with this is the use of the word adoption. Adoption. Probably adaptation will appeal to me more than adoption. Because when you talk of Africanization, you are meaning that we want to make it fit the African environment. Yes. So this article on Africanized CBC implies that the CBC can be adapted and not merely adopted. One of the outputs of the CBC public participation called by President Ruto should, in my opinion, therefore, result in adapting the curriculum to fit in the Kenyan environment and not simply adopting it. In other words, the stakeholders, the parents, for example, the teachers, have to be put into consideration as we bring in the CPC, so that we don't just adopt it and transfer it and translate it over here, but we adapt it. Now, as we discuss the CBC at where it is now, at the level it is now, we must be cognizant of the fact that it will eventually reach the university. What lessons can we learn from the 844, which to me was good, but not well adapted? I have personally rubbed shoulders with the introduction of entrepreneurship education at the university. We poured new wine in old wineskins. But the good book in Mark 2:22 saith, "And no one pours new wine into old wineskins. Otherwise the wine will burst, and the skins and both the wine and the wineskins will be ruined. No, they pour new wine into new wineskins." Therefore, of entrepreneurship, we brought in entrepreneurs and new wine, but we fitted it in the old system, which may not work. I chaired the committee that introduced entrepreneurship education at higher education in Kenya, that is at master's and PhD. Yes, when the ILO UNDP project of entrepreneurship in Kenya came to an end in 1992, that was being conducted by the University of Illinois in the United States. I chaired a committee that institutionalized that curriculum, that education, entrepreneurship at master's and PhD. The main objective of entrepreneurship education is to graduate employers and not employees, for graduates to start their own businesses and employ others. Unfortunately, the method of teaching entrepreneurship has not generated that. The objective has not been fulfilled. And therefore, I went on and introduced my own addition. I adapted the teaching, the theoretical teaching of entrepreneurship to what I call LAE, learn as you earn. And indeed, I quickly discovered that any other unit, whether entrepreneurship or not, marketing, for example, project management, for example, can also be taught in the same manner. And I have had success in this approach. Let's listen to some of my students who have actually undertaken projects rather than written examinations.
At that link, you can hear about my Innovative Youth Incubator Awards that I got in Washington after being identified as, or rather my approach to teaching entrepreneurship having been identified as innovative, and I got that award. You see, Buisa makes students start own businesses on campus. Buisa talks about his Learn as You Earn award. Now, listen to my marketing unit students who borrowed from their parents to undertake their university Learn as You Earn examination project and went on to start a part-time business while still in their very early years on campus. These three students actually borrowed. Let's watch them.
So the objectives of our products include the chokers. This is what is called a choker. The earrings is very unique. Yeah, the bangles. Though we don't have a lot of these. The shoelaces. Okay, so as now we show you the products, our objectives are to come up with unique products which are beautiful and appealing to the eyes, and then satisfy the needs of our customers who are mainly ladies. Then make earning profits, and then in future we are planning to increase our line of products, which include the tissue holders, which we make from the material. And then we are also planning to make pillowcases. Yeah. For the chokers, we need the beads. These beads. And then we also need fishnets. And then we need these leaflets. Yeah. So this is an unfinished
Okay, so the purpose of this proposal is that we get a readily available market, we get raw materials at the cheapest price, so that we can have easy access to capital as when applying for a loan bank, and financiers get to go through our proposal, and also to market our business, products, and our sales. So our creditors for now, because it is our first trial and it is I can't say it is an error business, but it's our first trial, we didn't have any other sources of capital, so we borrowed funds from our parents, which we had to refund them at an interest depending on how the business would run.
The challenges we faced, one is credit payments. These where people order the products and then they fail to make the payments, or they first pay the initial installment and then they fail finish the payment. And then secondly, the finishing of the products, mainly the chokers, the finishing of the product is difficult. And we're trying to find an easy but attractive finishing. Then the third one, it is stressful looking for the raw materials, mostly the vitengers. Therefore, we found it better to buy in bulk. Then that making the stitches is tiresome, and then it is risky as one can pierce herself. We're saving money to buy a sewing machine. Then sometimes the shoelaces and the earrings, this bow tie doesn't match with the material that one has. So we're making it. We're defending the suppliers so that they can cut for us small pieces that will match the needs of our customers. And then when ironing some of the products, mostly the iron materials, it's hard since they burn easily. So we are avoiding the iron materials, the nylon materials. And then the problem of making the deliveries in case the orders are many. We try to hire, with time when our market will expand, we'll hire people to help us in making deliveries.
Yeah, so our raw materials for the beads, we bought them from the boys, I don't know how you call it, whatever. So, and the fishnets too. For the materials, we got them from Italy. Yeah. Then
The pricing of the earrings, it's only at 100 shillings only. And it has an advantage actually, because you can wear this earring as just a normal earring like this, and you can also use this bow as a hair bow, and you can also just fix it yourself. So it's just an advantage in itself. And the chokers, these ones, they're only at 200 shillings. And these ones are also at 200 shillings. The shoelaces, these ones, they're at 50 bob only. So if you have a material that you have and you don't want to, or when you're making clothes for maybe going to church or whatever, and then you have these leftovers materials, you can give us and we can just make it for you.
Yeah, and a comment, we'd like to thank Mr. Lisa for allowing us to install. Actually, some of us were just thinking of being hired to do someone's job, but now we have so many orders, like this one. Like right now, we sold like over 10 of them. Then the earrings, we sold like, okay, not so many, just 5. Yeah, and the shoelaces, we are not done because we don't have a sewing machine or whatever. But thank you. We didn't have done that.
We want Chelsea. So, thank you for watching. And please subscribe, share, like, but above all, leave a comment. So, have a competency-based day, won't you? Thank you.